おめえほどの男がイーストブルーで腕一本落として帰ってきた時は誰もが驚いたもんだ。どんな敵にくれてやったんだ、その左腕。
これか。どうせ連れてってやんねえよ。お前なんかが海賊になれるか。
なる！俺はいつかこの一味にも負けない仲間を集めて世界一の財宝を見つけて絶対なってやる、海賊王に。
新しい時代にかけてきた。
When someone of your caliber loses one of his arms in the East Blue, everyone was surprised. So tell me, which enemy did you lose this arm to? In episode 316, when Shanks meets with Whitebeard, whom he hasn't seen in a while, approximately 11 to 12 years since he doesn't know about Shanks' arm, after reminiscing about the past, this is the first question he asked him, showing how much of a surprise it was for everyone who heard the news at the time spread, considering all the facts that we were given so far in the series, Shanks being a notorious pirate, a Yonko, and East Blue being the weakest of the seas. Which enemy did you lose this arm to, who was strong enough to cut off your arm in the East Blue? After all these years, this is the first thing that Whitebeard is asking Shanks, and to which Shanks replies, "This arm, I bet it on a new era," with a little smile at the end. Bet, new era. Two words who can describe pretty well the type of mindset Shanks has in the series, betting being one of the activities favored by pirates around the world, and Shanks, who despite his good nature is still a real pirate, living freely, sure enjoy the bet, and new era, because if he wasn't really part of the Creed era, he was just an apprentice at this time. He was there at the very beginning of the golden era of piracy. He was one of the few who understood what was happening, he even more than the rest, because as Roger's apprentice, he had already seen the war, and considering the last message that Roger gave him, which we still don't know but can only speculate, that he had something to do with it. So Shanks knew a new era was gonna come and change the whole world. This is why he has always embraced it, at the difference of the other Yonko, which were full of trust, confidence and power, that they didn't realize or they didn't want to accept that time has passed and it was time for a new generation to take over. This is just the cycle of life, just a loop, repeating itself. A loop. Like Roger entrusting the straw hat to Shanks, or like him entrusting it to Luffy, a boy he randomly met in the East Blue, a little boy with whom he only spent a few days, but a boy for whom he decided to sacrifice an arm with a smile on his face, and a boy to whom he entrusted the greatest memento, except maybe the One Piece, of the greatest pirate to ever lived, his own mentor. Now, if you are taking Shanks' perspective in it, we have to realize how big of a trust that was. In its few apparition and its obvious sense of diplomacy in the series, we know that Shanks is no dummy. We also know that Shanks is really powerful. He's a pirate, but somehow believe in fairness and equality, or at least act like it. He has lived a really full life, filled of adventures, but still had yet to fulfill his goal. Shanks is not old. Matter of fact, it is actually safe to assume that he might be at his prime. So, if we take all those elements into consideration, he, entrusting all of that in the future into a random boy, is no mindless act. But I'm pretty sure I'm telling you nothing that you didn't really know. I just thought it was important for me to start by clarifying it and stating all these facts and elements so that we can grasp the true motives, the true reason behind this sacrifice, behind this bet. A bet. Those are Shanks' own words to whoever want to hear them. How can we define a bet? In this case, or in general, bet is putting something of value on the line for an uncertain but expected outcome, or at least an outcome that you hope for. And we know that the higher the bid, the higher the expectation. And in this case, the bid was pretty damn high. And Shanks is not just betting, he's betting on someone. He's betting on the future. He's betting on the little child, who I believe couldn't even spell his own name at the time. So the risk factors and the uncertainty of the outcome are also pretty damn high, if not higher, and to do that regardless, as Whitebeard told him after seeing his face. You must be pretty well confident. We know that Shanks decided to bet on Luffy before the sea beast attacked. We can speculate on 3 reasons why Shanks would have done such a thing, would have decided to do such a thing. First and most obvious one, Luffy had the Gomu Gomu / Nika fruit, assuming that they knew its real value at the time, yet decided not to eat it or sell it. If they were not gonna sell it, and knowing the Red Air Pirate policy with no devil fruit user, we can definitely guess that the plan was to get someone to eat it. And who, beside Luffy, was in the East Blue? Ace. It hasn't been confirmed that Shanks knew about Ace, but in the cover story of Ace meeting him, Shanks was not surprised of seeing Ace. He was surprised of the fact that he and Luffy were brothers, same as in Marineford. Also, if he didn't know Ace's origin, why would he go to Whitebeard to warn him against Blackbeard? So yeah, Shanks knew about Ace. He hasn't been revealed yet, but Shanks managed to get some informations about Ace's location, and it's pretty obvious that after capturing the Nika fruit, they went to the East Blue to look for the boy. And if you ask me, how could have Shanks known? Well, too many reasons. He was Roger's apprentice, so Roger was also saying that since they were too early, it was his son in the making who was going to take over his legacy. Roger probably said it jokingly, but he surely thought so. He knew everything, the will of D, he was a D, and decided to go and have a child with another D, who definitely had incredible abilities since he managed to get Aces away from the government mass murder of newborn's baby to prevent the reproduction of Gold D. Roger, and she managed to do so by keeping him using Aki in her womb for 20 whole months. So she was definitely special. This, I believe, is a direct reference to the slaughter of infants in the Bible, so Aces was the chosen one, and Shanks probably did know it. Luffy ate the fruit that was destined to the prodigal son. This is the first point. Another one might be, and it is a simple one, Luffy global attitude. He was a nice kid who had big dreams just like him, just like Roger did before, who wasn't scared of expressing them, and let's say maybe somehow he reminded him of himself when he was younger. So he and his crew grew like him on the boy and decided to just bet everything on him, which would make sense too. And last but not least, the one reason Shanks has openly expressed in the series, Luffy said the same exact word as Roger did. This is the key reason why he decided to bet everything on him, as he thought really. What can such a thing be? Well, we don't know yet. For the very long time, we thought that the were the famous word that made Shanks decide to choose Luffy. But we were wrong. It was probably Luffy's true dream that we learned after Wano that made Shanks decide to choose him. A dream he only shared with his brothers when exchanging vows, and a dream Aces truly believed in and he shared with Yamato. This, I call it the Luffy's effect. Same as he did with this guy named Raoul in Lockdown. I don't know if many of you can remember, but he was the bartender who was a big fan of Roger, but didn't really quite relate to that new era until meeting Luffy, in which he saw Roger like Shanks did. Same thing kinda happened with Crocus too. So when Shanks loses his arm to the Sea King, he already had chose Luffy. So when was it? When did Luffy pronounce such words? Maybe right before going to attack the bandits, because when Shanks and his crew came to his rescue, first thing he said was, "We know everything. Makino told us everything. You fought for our sake." Okay, it's true that those are some pretty obvious sentences, but the way he said it, and it was really amplified in the manga and the animation as well. Like, Shanks is really shocked. He's really surprised. Like, what did this kid say? So might be that, or might just be like an off panel we haven't seen yet. But I was just trying to make a point that Shanks already had made his choice before this happened. It is with no hesitation that he sacrificed his arm for Luffy. A sacrifice. Giving up something valued for the sake of others. The sacrifice can have different effect on people, but the most common one is gratefulness. I owe my life to you, so tell me, what can I do for you? I don't know, maybe become a great pirate and see me at the top of the game. And me and my crew will make sure to be waiting for you where you need to be. For that reason, we need to get ready, we need to prepare, we need to keep playing the game. And if I want to meet you at the very end of it, I have to play the game with the most serious possible and play it with all my heart, because that is what you have to do. Now I'm trying to take Luffy's perspective. It was a sacrifice, but for the boy it was its first trauma, really. Its first shock. He hadn't gone to Mount Corvo yet. So far Luffy's life was, well, he has a grandfather that everybody love and respect and everybody's kinda scared of, and he does pretty much whatever he wants. He's like the child of the village. Everybody like him in the city, like this misbehaving kid who does everything and everybody knows about, and everybody cool with it. He's fun, I mean, come on. He's Luffy. So for Luffy, who was a good swimmer, not being able to swim, being beat up, seeing death for the first time, shouldn't forget about like all those bandits who died, and seeing all of that, it was a lot for him. It was a little bit of a trauma. Seeing the quality of the world and seeing how good guys can be cruel when needed to be. So it was a blend of emotions, and at the end he thought he would lose his life. We could see maybe like a little bit of shock value from Luffy's side. And shock value in real life is seen as something pretty negative, because it is seen as anything that can affect someone negatively, like trauma, basically. But I also believe that it can have a positive outcome. The shock can be so strong that you don't want to relive it ever. Like, you live something that traumatizes you, that you decide like, no, I don't want to be in that situation again. And either you fold or either you prevail. Like some people, they have a trauma and they don't get past that. They keep avoiding and avoiding and avoiding. And others people have a trauma and be like, okay, cool, I gotta be strong enough that I don't want to relive that situation again. I don't want to go through that again. So I gotta be strong enough. I gotta be high enough, like elevated enough to not be affected by that type of situation, or to not be in that type of situation at all again. So shock value can be pretty positive too. And the fact that he was gonna die and to be saved is basically his hero. I mean, he's a fanboy of Shanks, you know. So literally seeing him like lose his arm after seeing how cool and how great he was like, damn bro, I mean, I did that to you, I ruined you. And the first words of Luffy is not thank you, it's like, Shanks, your harm. What did I do? You get what I'm saying? It can lead to that type of feeling like, I fucked up, I don't want to fucked up again. Coupling it with the sacrifice that we talked about earlier, it can lead to inspire people. And also, Shanks is really crucial. I mean, the whole Luffy flashback, it's basically Shanks teaching him everything about life, and we saw it in the series. Everything Luffy does, especially in the first part of his blue and the first part of the Grand Line, even everything Luffy does is basically mimicking Shanks. Like his diplomacy, his seriousness, his goofiness but seriousness, his love for parties, his freedom. And talking about freedom, it just got to me now. Maybe this is what made Shanks choose Luffy, the freedom, because he said that I don't want to rule anything. I just want to be the freest man. And maybe we're just speculating enough, but I still believe that the true dream of Luffy has something to do with it. It might be all of those combined. But anyway, a sacrifice can inspire people, and the shock provoked by it, it's the same thing that happened to Luffy and Ace. The shock was too strong, too much. The trauma was the biggest trauma he ever faced. If you take in consideration that just before that it was about it and impelled down as well, he was like, okay, I've seen my limits, and now like, no man, I will do the most. He sacrificed himself to save Luffy. He's reliving like Shanks again, but deeper, harder. Like somebody that I love sacrificed a lot for my sake again. I don't want to be in that position again. Matter of fact, I wouldn't mind being the martyr. And who said it earlier, Shanks was no dummy. We always knew that he was already notorious at the time, but we didn't know how notorious he was. We recently discovered that he already had like bounties over $1 billion. So it was no joke. I mean, he didn't need to lose his arm against the Sea King. We can speculate he was too fast. He was, I mean, last reflex or whatever. But the guy has future sight, man. He wasn't probably that strong at this time, but he probably had saw what would have happened to the boy. And he already had master Aki, because to have a bounty that high and no devil fruit and be able to steal to the CP9 at the time, you had to be at least that good. So yeah, Aki was definitely a master at it. He was already like fighting with Mihawk, and their battles were legendary, so he was no fucking joke. With all the respect I have to the Sea King, it wasn't the Sea King who took Shanks' arm. I believe it's Shanks who gave up his arm to the Sea King, and he did that for Luffy's sake. It's not as simple as that. There is a deeper meaning, and we already talked about it, and it will make more sense when I will summarize it. But I believe if you've been following this video carefully, you probably will get to the same conclusion as I. Shanks decided to take a bet on Luffy, and one could say he had no choice after everything, all of those elements and factors. But Luffy was just a little kid. I don't know if he knew that Luffy's was Garp grandson at the time, but he probably figured it out. There weren't too many factors for this bet not to pay off. And even if we said earlier that Shanks has any powers enjoy bet, the activity of betting, you, I, all the powers in the world, in the fictional world, and the Marines, when we do bet, we tend to make sure that the outcome will be pretty favorable. When you throw a bottle at the sea, like to deliver a message, you don't just throw the bottle and just like that. You make sure like the paper is nicely inside, the bottle is nicely sealed. You choose a bottle that is pretty strong to survive anything the ocean can throw at it. So even if you take a bet as wild as this, and I like that image, you still kind of make sure that you don't do that in vain. Shanks is a grown-up, he's a mastermind. His thinking process could have been something like, okay, this kid might be it. This is not what we are supposed to do, but this happened, and I cannot just deny it. How can I make sure that I do not regret it? How can I make sure that this kid follow on this path without me forcing him to? Because when somebody is doing something on their own free will, they will definitely do more than when somebody is telling them to do so. We are talking psychology, I know, but Shanks already has shown psychology. I mean, the whole Marine 4, it's just a masterclass. And even from before, like we heard that he stopped Kaido, he was busy stopping Kaido because he knew what this could have meant for the rest of the world. Even though he's on the, I would say, bad side of the story, even though we don't know for sure now because of the new revelations, we still know that Shanks makes sure to maintain the balance of the world when he goes and be like, okay, it might be too soon for us to go against Blackbeard, because even though you might underestimate the boy, he's the one who gave me that scars. No Mihawk, no foes, no Marines, no shit. So he's someone who thinks with his head and not just with his trail, I would say, like Luffy, for example. Or Kid is a better example. Anyhow, as I was saying, Shanks, despite taking a very, very risky bet, made sure that the odds were on his favor. For such expected high returns, the bid must be pretty damn high. So high that the object of the bid, which is a person in this case, would not forget about it. So high that this sacrifice, this bet, could be a driving force to this person's sheer will. And we know pretty damn well it worked. I mean, the first time we are introduced to Shanks in the anime, at least, it's through Luffy's flashback. And I like this scene where they are on their little boat with Zoro, and the straw just flies. After they were talking about navigation, funny how the captain and the boy who has been navigating, wondering so far, none of them has any navigation skills, but anyway, they're just there chilling and feeling kind of hopeless. And the heart just flies away, and they both try to catch him, and Luffy is like, oh shit, I will lose my treasure. So it worked for the most part. And at every new bounties, every new headlines, Shanks say that the plan is in motion and it keeps working. Because yeah, it was all a plan. Plan B, maybe. but it was the plan they decided to go with. Also, Shanks took a liking on the boy, as we said earlier, and was definitely raising him as a son and teaching him life lessons. I mean, everything, like every interaction, and I mean it, every interaction that they had was an opportunity for Luffy to learn, and Shanks did teach him very well in a real subtle manner. So subtle that it didn't seem like that, at least from Luffy's perspective. But he just grew up with it without even knowing why. It just impacted him so hard that whole period with Shanks defined his whole personality for the rest of his life. After this smoking, cause the then I could feel everything. I put my emotions away. I fun till I see more pain.